Hi everyone, my name is Jada and I am going to be taking us through our Devos for week 5. This one is called God Loves Us Even Though We Mess Up. So we're just going to start at the beginning here with some questions for you guys to think about at home. Do you ever break the rules? Ever do something that you know is wrong, but you do it anyways? Well, God has a word for that, and in the Bible that is called sin. So sin is when we walk away from God and decide to go our own path, which is never as good as the path that he lays out for us. Just about everyone in the Bible at some point messed up, except for one very important person, Jesus himself. So in the very beginning, when God created the world, he made a beautiful place, and this place was a garden. And there he made 2 people, man named Adam and a woman named Eve. And they were his helpers and his companions to take care of the beautiful garden that he had made called Eden. It had everything that they would ever want, and they never had to work. They could just hang out forever with God, which was a pretty cool gig. But there was one rule. For this whole life that they had in the garden, just one rule: they were not allowed to eat the fruit from a tree in the middle of the garden. Now this tree was called the tree of knowledge, of good and evil. Some call it an apple tree, but nobody really knows what kind of fruit it was. I always like to imagine an apple though. But in the garden, in this perfect place, there did live a serpent. And he was sneaky and he was tricky. And he talked Eve into disobeying God by eating the fruit. And after she took a bite, she brought the fruit to Adam, and he ate it too. Adam and Eve directly disobeyed God. And when they did this, when they broke the one rule he'd made, sin entered our world. God's perfect world was immediately broken. God made all of us with the ability to choose every day what we should do. Just like Adam and Eve, sometimes we choose the wrong thing. But the good part of this story is that it's a redemptive story. God has a plan for forgiveness for all of us through Jesus. So at the bottom here, just a question for you guys to think about. What should we do when we mess up and need God to forgive us? And you should read 1 John 1:9. One of the main questions that I just want to talk through here is, are big sins and little sins the same? So there's all different kinds of sins. There are things that in the Bible, Jesus tells us that we shouldn't do. We should obey our parents. We shouldn't lie. We shouldn't steal. And there are some bigger sins too, right? And the question that we want to think through is, are big sins and little sins all the same? And this is something I've thought about a lot too. You know, as you get older, you start to see that the world really is broken, and there are a lot of ways that we can walk away from God. And so when I've thought about it, I've always tried to imagine myself in his position. God created this perfect world, and now it's broken. And it doesn't matter what the kind of brokenness is, none of it is perfect. And the only way that it would be perfect is when we're in heaven. So even when we mess up and when things don't go our way and we walk away from God, God gives us the beautiful gift of forgiveness. And all sin, big or small, breaks his heart. But if we ask for forgiveness in his name, he'll meet us there and forgive us of our sin. So I want you guys to try this at home, okay? Take an orange and a grape, or an apple and a grape, something big and something small. And I want you to stand on something super tall and drop the 2 objects. Do they hit the floor at the same time? Maybe even if they don't hit the floor at the same time, do they both hit the floor at some point? What does this tell us about how God looks at sin, a big one and a little one? No matter what you do when you drop them, they're going to hit the floor. That's how God views sin. There's big sin and there's little sin, but none of it is perfect in the way that he designed for us to live. So I want you guys just to kind of look over this page, think about these lessons, and think about where in your life have you noticed that maybe you've walked away from God? And go ahead and ask him for forgiveness, because I promise you, he meets all of us there. All right, we'll see you guys next week.